Hey, Rick. Hi, Rick.
How are you?
Good, good. Are you hearing me clear?
I am. Are you hearing me clear?
Yes, I am. I am. I'm going to adjust a couple of things. I'm recording this for radio audio, and then I'm recording the video here. So I want to make sure I got everything going. Man, I got to tell you, when I heard I had opportunity to talk to you, I was excited as could be. And I've interviewed a lot of bands, but 10 years after, to me, and you probably hear this all the time, but I'm going home from the Woodstock album. I mean, that's when I started playing air guitar. When I just heard, that it just blew me away. And of course, for people who don't know, you got to hear this stuff. If you're listening to the radio version of this, you will, but you got to listen to that again. It's been a long time. And then A Space and Time with a great big, huge hit that still gives me goosebumps. I'd love to change the world. That was their big. So we're going to talk about all that. But they have a new album, and that's what's exciting. And Rick has a book. The new album's out. It's A Sting in the Tail, and your new album is called From Headstocks to Woodstock. A lot of stuff going on, man.
Sorry, we should point out that it's called the Deluxe Edition, A Sting in the Tail Deluxe Edition, because it's got extra tracks on it. Because A Sting in the Tail, that's it. That was out in Europe about 3 years ago. So we want to make sure that people know that it's the deluxe edition available in America.
And it has the live version of I'd Love to Change the World.
It does, yeah.
That's great. That's great. I think a good place to start is Woodstock. Because the story, and I know you're probably sick of talking about this, but it's just amazing. First of all, you didn't want to do it, I understand. But go ahead.
No, well, it wasn't. We didn't want to do it. Our manager just didn't think the deal was very good.
Oh,
compared to what we were doing at the time. So he kept turning it down. Frank Barcelona, our agent, kept ringing him up and saying, "I think this is going to be pretty big." They're expecting 50,000 people. Which it was in the early days. And Chris kept saying, "Well, what's the deal? What's the money like?" And Frank told him, he said, "Oh, no, we're doing better than that anyway. We want to do this upstate New York sort of thing in a field. What's all that about?" So eventually Frank kept on at him, and he finally said, "Listen, I think you've got to do this. Jefferson Airplane just signed up for it. Janis Joplin's doing it. The Who are going to do it, and I just heard that Hendrix is going to do it. You'd be crazy not to do this." And by that time, of course, the publicity was building in the press, and people had started to travel from all over the world to be there. So we got an inkling that it was going to be pretty big, but nothing like it actually turned out to be.
And it's amazing. You went on the stage like at 8:30 in the morning?
No, it was in the evening.
In the evening, okay. Well, I want to go back because the night.
No, Jimmy was on it. Jimmy closed the weekend. Not, I think 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, I see. Yeah, the story the night before, you were at a concert. It was a wild night, and then you had to go to bed and get up at 5 a.m. to head to New York. Right? It was a real ordeal. You probably didn't feel your best. So talk about that.
I don't think we got our bed that long,
Yeah, I know. How do you wind down in time to get some sleep? But the whole story about when you get there, Janis Joplin was having a kind of a pot party for everybody. Everybody was just talk about that whole thing, and it's just a great story.
Well, we arrived in 2 cars from New York Airport. The only time we ate was on the plane from St. Louis to New York. And we got to the hotel and we said, "We've got a room." And the guy said, "Oh, yeah, there's plenty of rooms, just take anyone you like." So we went to find a room, but of course, all the rooms are taken by the bands. People, as you say, chilling out and whatever, all over the place. So I was just trying to get some sleep. So I was lying on the floor, put my head on my rucksack. And we were sharing the room with Janis and Big Brother. We'd worked with them before at Fillmore East, so we knew everybody. And anyway, I was just trying to get some sleep. And our American manager, Dee Anthony, came running in and said, "We've got to go to the festival." We said, "Well, we're not on till tonight. What's the problem?" No, they want you now. You're going to go on in the afternoon. So we went to get in the cars, and he said, "Forget it. There's no way you can drive there. All the roads are blocked within 6 miles of here." So people just dumped their cars and walked to the festival site. So he said, "We're going to go in by helicopter." So we go up to the helipad, and there was a chopper standing there, and I was about to get on it, and I got pushed out of the way by this sort of stocky geezer with a pair of glasses and a ponytail. He was an older man. It turned out to be Bob Dylan's manager. And he was there with Crosby, Nash, and not Nash, sorry, I always get this wrong. Crosby, Stills, and Young. Graham Nash, I thought, was there, but he arrived later, apparently. It was Albert Grossman, sorry, was the manager. Mm-hmm. So I was about to make a protest, and he said, "Oh, forget it, there'll be another one along in a minute." So they took our helicopter. And we got another one. And I was in it with the medic, and the medic said, "There's don't eat anything that's not cooked, and don't drink anything that's not out of a sealed can, because we've got hepatitis breaking out. And if we're not careful, we could have an epidemic." And in fact, my book is called From Headstocks to Woodstock. And I was going to call the follow-up, if I ever get it finished, From Woodstock to Whaley, which is Whaley Bridge, where I live now. Yeah. But in view of the interviews I've been doing, I think I'm going to call it From Epidemic to Pandemic.
That's good. That's good. And we're going to talk more about that book, because that was a lot of work. And yeah, the book that you just came out with. But yeah, continue the story here. I want people to hear the details here.
Oh, well, when we arrived, I sat and watched Joe Cocker's set. It was a very nice sunny day. And he did a great set, of course, as always. And then we went, sorry, just grab a glass of water.
Sure, man. I'm going to do the same.
So we went and watched the show, and then the storm came up, of course, and everything was live. The stage had no real covering over it, and all the water just soaked all the electrics, so it became unsafe. And Michael Lang wouldn't let anybody go on, which was a very wise move, I think. And of course, the electrics knocked out all the cooking equipment that there was backstage, so we didn't get any. There was no food that wasn't cooked, and I couldn't find a can that hadn't already been opened. We later, I believe, got some water that came in a pack of 6-pack of water.
Yeah.
By the time we went on, Bill Graham had actually arrived, and Chip Monk, his assistant, and they had started to organize things better backstage, and I think they were very, very involved in getting the stage made safe. I remember seeing Chip Monk come crawling out from under the stage. I said, "What have you been doing?" He said, "Oh, trying to find out what's safe and what isn't."
Yeah. Wow.
There's a photograph of me somewhere, not talking to him, backstage. But what happened was Country Joe and the Fish, who we'd supported at Fillmore East. Joe had sworn never to follow us again because they couldn't follow us at Fillmore East. We used to drain the audiences. In fact, Blood, Sweat and Tears had the same problem with us. They had us taken off a tour. We did about 4 dates out of a 10 or 15 date tour because they said they couldn't follow us. And so Joe wasn't going to risk it again. So he snuck on and did his set after the storm. And then Johnny Winter snuck on as well. So from having supposedly going on in the afternoon, we ended up, as you said earlier, at 8:30 in the evening. So
yeah,
and then I found out also that Dee Anthony had been hustling for us to go on when they put the stage lights on, because that's always a good time to go,
Yeah.
So that, I think it was a combination of those events. And we got on, very nervous, of course, playing in front of 300,000 or however many it was, who were very patient. A lot of them were very stoned, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, you could smell the pot with 300,000 people screaming, man. I know, because I wasn't there, but I know just any concert, you smelt the pot back then. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, I did. Funny enough, you say that I did an interview with a guy I can't remember what it was for now, recently on this sort of interview tour I'm doing. And he said he was at Woodstock, but he couldn't remember much because he was out of his head on acid for 3 days.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, we went down very well, but just one problem we had, which was that because of the atmospherics from the storm, and it had been a hot summer's day in between, and you got condensation, the guitars wouldn't stay in tune. So we started Good Morning Little Schoolgirl about 4 times, which was a bit unnerving in front of a big crowd. But they, as I said earlier, they were very patient. And we went down a storm at the end of it, which was fantastic.
Man, oh man. First of all, you got to know, I didn't know this. There's a lot more music. You had like, how many songs did you do that wasn't on the album?
I think there's 6, possibly 7, but that's counting the false starts to Good Morning Little Schoolgirl. Yeah,
and you're going to have a new album coming out with all those cuts, right? Chris just found the record.
Well, EMI had found it ages ago, and then they lost the catalogue, and it went to Warner's. Warner's weren't interested in doing anything, because I guess they were protecting their rights in the Woodstock album.
Yeah.
And then it came back to Chrysalis. Chris Wright reformed Chrysalis, and they got the rights back to that album. But they were going to release it this year in June, July. But in fact, it's not coming out now until 2022, because they got into Warner's Records, who agreed everything, but then Warner's Films got involved, and apparently they've been arguing the toss about different things. So it was going to cramp the release time, because in October this year, it's the 50th anniversary of A Space in Time, which you mentioned. And they're planning to do something good with that, some kind of promotional exercise with that in October. So if by the time they got Woodstock sorted out, it would be crashing into that. So they decided to put Woodstock out next year. And I think the Spoonful on it. There was my solo Hobbit. I Can't Creep from Crying Sometimes. Good Morning Little Schoolgirl. I'm Going Home, of course. And there was one other track which has escaped me. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Oh, that's all right. Well, that's going to be great when that comes out. And then the EMI vault, that's a whole nother story. I mean, you just sat around and said, I'm sick and tired of we only have all of what we already have in the catalog. We have other music out there that we need to find. And you had a hell of a time trying to get into the vault at EMI, huh?
Well, it wasn't too bad, but I rang them up and said, listen, you keep putting out the same old stuff. Yeah. It's good value for the fans. And each time it was also dropping down from full price to mid price to budget, basically cheapening everything, in my opinion. So they said, well, actually, we're just going to have a look at things. Why don't you come and help us? Which is what record companies always say when you ask them awkward questions. And so, I went in there, and we found some bonus tracks that had not been out before. So we did that. And then fantastic find was the 1970 album, Live at the Fillmore East.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. I can't wait to hear that.
Well, in my opinion, it's the band that it's absolute nadir,
Yeah.
I listened to it a few months back. It's really, really good. I think, as I say, it's the top, certainly of the live albums, it's the top one for me.
Yeah.
And I hadn't realized how much Alvin and I played off each other until I heard that again. And it was quite incredible, actually. That long, it didn't start out that fast and that long, I'm Going Home. Did he not enjoy doing that solo? Because that's a lot of work. I mean, I'm not sure how he felt about doing I'm Going Home, that long version all the time. Did he have mixed feelings too as a guitar player? Well, I'm not sure on that, but he kept adding bits to it,
Yeah, yeah.
Because you get an Elvis Presley bit, and then you get I can't remember. Just kept adding stuff, because the rock and roll tempo, allowed for that,
Yeah.
Jerry Lee Lewis, a whole lot of shaking and all those things.
Oh God, it's great. I just listened to it a couple days ago in the studio. Just unbelievable. I'm playing air guitar again. Now, this is the other interesting things to me about 10 years after is the versatility. You had the Suresh Album, which was an AOR progressive rock kind of record.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Cricklewood Green, when that came out, and I got that here. I got all your stuff. Cricklewood Green, this one was like not just played on the AOR radio and progressive rock radio. This was as big a hit as you could be on album rock radio. Not necessarily top 40, with Working on the Road. It had a jazzy feel too. Me and My Baby. Yeah, that was so different from the electric side, but that was part of the talent.
Well, Alvin always used to say, shall we do a swing number? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So he said, oh, okay, well, I've got this, Me and My Baby, and there were a couple of others. I can't remember all the titles now, but, and Leo used to say, oh, no, we're a rock band. And Alvin said, oh, never mind that. We'll do a swing track. And he always knew that I'd be up for doing a swing track. So that's kind of, I think it was safety in numbers in that respect.
Well, it's cool. And it also shows, everybody, we all have different kinds of genres of music that we like. And when you're growing up, you don't want to admit that necessarily to your friends that you might like certain kinds of music because they think you're whatever you happen to be. But and the other thing is, 10 years after Space and Time, this just produced so well. Everything, the quality, the fidelity. I don't know was this on Columbia originally, recorded in their studios?
Yeah, what it was no, it wasn't recorded in Columbia Studio. It was recorded in Olympic in London.
So a lot of great.
And I put the drums on I'd Love to Change the World after the track was laid down. And there was no click tracks, no electronic metronomes in those days. So I'd been ill and I was away for 2 days, and the guys decided they put that track down.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there were slight fluctuations in the tempo. So when I came to put the drums on, it wasn't the easiest job in the world. But I did it, and Alvin was a great encouragement. We were in Studio 2, and in Studio 2, the actual recording room was about 4 or 5 steps higher up than the control room. Mm-hmm. So when you look through the control room window, you could see the floor quite easily, and probably, if I wanted to see, the drums were actually set up by the control room window, but not intentionally. I mean, I guess that's where the engineer wanted them, and he could screen them off best. Mm-hmm. And whatever. But for me to look through the control room window, I had to look down through it. And when Alvin would be looking up, most of what he'd be seeing would be my feet. So we managed to be talking to each other, and seeing each other. And he was a great encouragement. And I think I did it in 2, maybe 3 takes in the end, but I had a few rehearsals at it. And then what we did was a technique called dropping in. You probably know what that. I don't know if the audience will know. You record so let's say I did the verse, and then the tempo changed slightly for the chorus, and to get it happening right, I would learn what it was, and then you would record the first section and then stop, and then they would play that section back to me, and then I would play along with that, and then they would hit the record button.
Yeah.
And we'd do that, and I think we maybe did on 2 occasions during the song. But I mean, I was never more gobsmacked than when it went top 40, and there I was. I'd put the drums on afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sound. It's all this. It's an interesting story too. That who was it? Clive Davis. Somebody at Columbia said, "Look, you're gonna become a hit. You got to have a hit. I'm gonna make sure you have a hit," and that's where the song really was born. Right.
Yeah, and Clive said that when we went to the officers to sign, he said, "You guys have never had a gold record. Well, you've been with London Records. Nothing you've done has gone gold." So he said, "My object is to get you a gold album," which was 400,000 units in those days. And obviously, Alvin took that on board. He said, "Give me an AM hit, and we'll get you a gold record. And that's what happened. But after that, Alvin became disenchanted with the AM sort of audience because of, you got a lot of screaming girls and stuff like that, rather than, I mean, he always felt we were a musician's band, if you like.
Right.
And so playing to teenagers was not really where he was at. And Clive wanted to release a second single from the album, and they picked Tomorrow I'll Be Out of Town. And Alvin, I went to a couple of meetings. Clive used to invite me to go to the promotion meetings on a Monday morning, which is when all the promotion men from all around the country had flown in, on the red eye. And then they would sit around this table. We were about 30 or 40 guys, and they would say what was happening in their area of the marketplace. And there were several reports back saying that, radio stations were giving them feedback that Tomorrow I'll Be Out of Town would be a great single and so on and so forth. But Alvin basically refused to promote it, and I think from that moment on, that's when Clive lost interest in the band, because.
Oh, wow. Interesting part of the story. I didn't know.
Yeah, I think Clive wanted to see us being as big as, Chicago and some of the other acts they had on the Columbia label.
It's back at that, even later on, I know AC/DC, a band I've had on many times, and people asked all the time why for many years they didn't do the one hit they had on Top 40, which was You Shook Me All Night Long. When they did the Back in Black tour, they intentionally didn't do it because, back then it wasn't a good thing to be encouraging hits because you get that mixed audience. It's just not right. But eventually it all kind of worked out and they do the song. But I understand it. The Guess Who had the same deal with RCA where they said, listen, you can do anything you want, do all the hard stuff you want to do, because that's what they really wanted to do. But give me some hits. So after they had These Eyes, they said, okay, you can do anything you want, but you got to give me another hit. So they did Laughing. But in the meantime, they're rocking with all these album cuts. And Top 40 radio really didn't give them Album Rock radio stopped giving them the respect because they had all these Top 40 hits.
Yeah, that's always been a difficulty. Yeah.
So anyway.
But, Alvin would never play I'd Love to Change the World live.
Oh, man.
And I said, why? And he said, oh, it's in the wrong key. I said, well, change the key. And he said, no. And anyway, he said, I've got to play acoustic guitar and electric guitar. And so, to cut long story short, when Joe Gooch joined the band with Leo, when Leo was with us as well in 2004, I think it was, or 5, to start with, Joe had an acoustic guitar on a stand on the stage. So he could wear his electric guitar slung around his back. He could play the acoustic intro and verses, and then he could switch to electric guitar for the solos. Mm-hmm. Well, later on, he dispensed with that idea and then just played it on electric guitar, but with a kind of an acoustic sound for the verses, and then cranked it up for the solos. And that's what Marcus Bonfanti, our current lead guitarist, and
he's good too. And some of the songs at the end of Diamond Girl, like a guitar solo from the new album. Yeah. He's good. He's good. And the live version of I'd Love to Change the World, you're going to like it. I want to talk about the book, but this was a hell of a night. In fact, I was talking to Carmine about this. Carmine Apiece, he has a little. He's on every week. Yeah, he told me you helped him out when he was buying a car a couple of months ago. But at the Singer Bowl, the night of the Singer Bowl with Jeff Beck, it was Vanilla Fudge, and then Led Zeppelin shows up. They go on stage with you guys. And then Carmine said he was even on stage at one point with Zeppelin. I'll tell everybody that's what a gig, what a night. And this is when the Edwin Hawkins Singers were the opening band.
That's right. We were special guests. Fudge were the headliners, and the second headline was Jeff Beck Group. Jeff Beck Group had Rod Stewart on vocals, Ronnie Wood on bass, and Mickey Waller on drums. Partway through, we'd done our set, actually, and we were backstage. Zeppelin had turned up, and we were having a chat. And then towards the end of the set, Beck had done his bit, and suddenly we're Bonham slaps me on the back and says, "We're going to jam. Come on." So, and goes running off down the runway to the stage. So I went running with him, and then it was all of Jeff Beck group, everybody. So on stage, there was Bonham on the main kit, and he started bashing out a rhythm. I understand, I didn't know at the time, it was Jailhouse Rock. And then Carmine was on one side of him and I was on the other. We both got floor toms from the other drum kits, and we got pair of sticks, and we were whacking the hell out of these two floor toms, either side of Bonham. And then Rod Stewart and Robert Plant were doing the vocals. Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page were on guitar. And we had three bass players, I think it was. Tim Bogart, Ronnie Wood, and for somewhere, Glenn Cornick from Jethro Tull popped up. So we had three bass players. Yeah. So that was the lineup on that one. And it went down a storm. So Bonham decides to play, we'll do another track. And he decides he played the first track with no shirt on because it's a very hot summer's evening. He then decides he's going to play, I think he was going to play naked, actually. He started to take his trousers off and his underpants. And he was playing. And Peter Grant and Roger, I nearly got that right. Peter Grant and Richard Coles, who was the tour manager, saw the police looking at Bonham and realized that if he went any further, they were going to go grab him, you know. Yeah. So a pair of them rushed on stage and they ran and got Bonham, one arm through Bonham's arm, either side of him, and carried him off. And my lasting memory of that is of his arse disappearing in the spotlight.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Wow, I hate to ask this because the chances are probably slim. Anyone record that? Was there any audio of that jam?
I don't honestly know. If there is, I've not heard it.
Oh,
no,
man.
I'm going to have to watch the time now. Sorry.
What's that?
Carry on. I need to watch the time, but continue.
Yeah, I will. We'll keep it on. First of all, let's go back to the book for people who just tuned in here or whatever, if listening on the radio. From Headstocks to Woodstock. This is not easy. It took you 10 years. You really had to struggle with it. But no, I'm like you. Writing is an ordeal. So talk about the process of that. And I can't wait to read it. I didn't get my hard copy yet. I've been looking through the internet version that was sent. But but what a great book. You really got into some detail.
Well, I did a lot of research, and I was also very lucky. There was a fan of ours, a guy called Herb Starr from Boston, Massachusetts, who was actually at Woodstock. And there is a photograph of him by the stage, leaning on the stage on his elbow, you know, because the stage wasn't very high at Woodstock. So Herb put a book together called Alvin Lee and 10 Years After Pictorial History. And the chronology in it is fantastic. And so I picked that up, and it goes way back to the Jaybirds. Well, I knew all about that anyway. But then he'd go through it, and I'd go through the dates and think, oh, yeah, I remember that. That's interesting. Yeah. And then I went to my story. So basically, Herb's book became the skeleton for mine, and then I added the flesh to it with my stories. But I did do a lot of other research as well about things, you know, that I came across as I was writing it. I didn't find it a chore. I just wasn't sure that I wanted to write what happened after Woodstock because of it was the band falling apart. And you've got to be careful not to write and make it sound like sour grapes, you know. So I kept stopping and starting because I was originally going to write from when I was born to wherever I was at when I finally started writing it, you know. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, I'll finish it on a high. I'll finish at Woodstock, you know. So that's why it took 10 years. I'd done about 5 years. And then this friend of mine in Los Angeles, she was an agent for after dinner speakers and university lecturers and speakers, you know, go on tour and do a one-man show sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And she said, do you do anything? I said, yeah, I've got one. I do it. I do a one-man talk evening, you know. So she said, oh, great. She said, do you have a book? I said, well, I've got a half of one. she said, well, finish it, because a book's a great place to start. And then we can sell the book, and then we can do this,
Motivation, man.
Yeah, that's why I got on and finished it. But it took me another 5 years.
It's out. It's great. And one final question here. And I had Alvin Lee on probably a year or two before he died. It was the early 2000s.
Yeah.
He came back to the band after he left, but then he left again. What was the reason he left a second time?
Actually, there were 3 returns in a way.
Really?
Yeah. He just said it was from 88 to 92, I think it was. And he just sent us an email and said, sorry, guys, but I'm going to go solo again. It's nothing personal. It's just something I want to do. And that's what he did. But we did get together again, actually, in 95 and played in Brazil. And then he and Leo had a big row in Madrid in 98, I think it was. And that was really the end of it.
Rick, you're a great interview. Amazing stories. That's why the book, From Headstocks to Woodstock, is a great book. And A Sting in the Tail is the new album, the deluxe. It's out there with a live version of I'd Love to Change the World. I hope to have you back on the show, man. Thank you, Rick.
Oh, I'd love to. We've got another album we're licensing for Decco, the people who put out A Sting in the Tail Deluxe, called Naturally Live, which is the live album that we did subsequent to that. And that we should get. I'm just working on the deal as we speak, so we should have that together. And that, with any luck, will be out in before the summer.
Would there be another version of I'm Going Home on that? No. Probably.
No, there is actually. Yes, there is, because it was a live concert we did in Germany. Yes.
Yeah. How cool is that? Listen, man,
we can't not do that song. I mean.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Because that to me is what got me into guitar. Like guitar edged rock. That's where I grew up, and I love it. I still love those goosebumps from that stuff. Rick, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for being on the Allan Handelman Show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'll see you in the future, not too distant.
Absolutely, man.
My pleasure.
Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, take care. The same to you. Take care. Bye.